Tonight's Conservation Commission meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded. The first thing we have on tonight's agenda is open session, citizen concerns. If somebody has a question for the commission, that's something that's not on our commission agenda. Last time we had a meeting, somebody had something that was really for the commission down the hallway, the historical board, so that was kind of the wrong location. But if it's something related to conservation, just let us know and we'll entertain that. All right, we have nothing tonight, so moving right along into our regulatory hearing portion of the agenda. The first item we have is a request for determination of applicability. Mr. Bill Askenberg, 260 Old Westford Road, Roberts Field. Bill's the representing the Roberts Field Advisory Committee. Do we have a legal notice?
Yes.
Mr. Agent?
Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in room 204 at the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Bill Ricker Road, on Tuesday, May 24th, 2022, at 7 p.m. to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by Bill Askenberg on behalf of property owner Town of Chelmsford for proposed work within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at 260 Old Westford Road, Roberts Field, further identified as Assessor's Map 58, Block 276, Lot 1. The project entails removal of 3 old wooden benches and concrete footings, followed by replacement with 2 granite block benches on 7-foot long by 5-foot wide by 2-foot deep crust stone pads.
Very good, thanks. Bill, would you like to address the commission, give us a little overview?
Sure.
Just right up to the podium, please.
Hi, Bill Askenberg, 185 Westford Street. These 2 benches are part of a larger bench and table plan that the Friends of Roberts Field has been working on for the park. We're adding 17 granite benches all around the park, mainly around the walking track. And then we also have 4 metal benches, 8-foot metal benches that are going to be located mainly around the new baseball fields. And then one by the over by the playground as well. So these 2 were the only ones that really fell within proximity to the wetlands. And the idea here is that we're going to be removing, there's 3 older wooden benches that are close to the pond shore. We're going to take those out. Those they're practically out of the ground now from frost heave. The footings have been pushed up out of the ground. So we'll take those out. The DPW will put in the granite stone dust pad, same material that's being used around the walking track, and then the granite stones will sit right on top of that, and they'll be there forever, I think, because they're awfully heavy. So that's about it.
Okay, good. Let's see if the commission's got some questions. Chris, anything?
I'm good.
Very good. Bill?
No, I think it's great. It looks nice down there.
Good. Mark?
Oh, I agree. Yeah, it looks very nice, yeah. Like, those needed replacing. And
They were getting,
Yeah.
starting to show their age.
no, it looks great. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, John?
No, I'm good with that.
Good. David, anything?
No.
Good. That's the public hearing. Anybody from the public have any questions or comments before we take a vote? And no questions or comments, so if I could have a motion to approve with negative determination number 3, that'd be good. Moved by Bill, seconded by John. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None unanimous. You're all set, Bill.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
I'll let you know when that paperwork is ready, Bill.
Okay, thank you very much for your help.
Thank you.
Okay, the next on the agenda tonight is the request for determination of applicability. This was a matter that was that we heard back on May 10th. The town of Chelmsford related to 45 Adams Street, Varney Playground, but I understand from speaking to our agent that there was a request to continue this to our next, which meeting did they want to come back on?
June 14th.
June 14th? Okay, very good. So if we could, they're doing some more calculations, kind of, wanting to address our concerns that were raised up at our last meeting, so that's a good thing. So if I get a motion then to continue to June 14th? Bill again on the motion, Mark on the second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous. All right, good. We have a notice of intent. Again, this was continued from May 10th. Hearing, this was Michael and Tara Purrington, 32 Fifth Lane. And we have also here, the applicant has requested a continuance as well to June 14th, and also a rescheduled site walk of June 7th at 5 PM. So that would be a Tuesday, yeah, Tuesday.
That's right, sure, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so we'll, so if we could have a motion then to that, to move?
Move.
Moved by Bill, seconded by John. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None unanimous. All right. And then we have, next up is the notice of intent that was continued from our April 19th meeting. And we had, there was John Faneros, 13 AKA 9 Acton Road. Ms. Katie Enright is the engineer from Howard Stein Hudson, representing the applicant. Katie, why don't you let us know, just give a quick update on where we are now.
Yep, no, good evening, everyone. Katie Enright with Howard Stein Hudson. I actually was going to continue tonight, and I spoke with David yesterday, and I'm here tonight to give an update and also just to kind of have a discussion with the commission. Couple things. Attorney Phil Iliopoulos, who's the land use attorney for the project, hasn't been able to work with Gristmill yet. There's been a few emails that have gone back and forth, but we don't have a definitive agreement with them yet on the invasive removal and the mitigation or the restoration that we were looking at doing to the riverfront. So I don't have an answer on that yet. So we're waiting still for that. So certainly I'm not looking to close or do anything tonight in relative to that, but I know that there's some conversations being had there. The second conversation kind of surrounds planting in a couple different areas. So we have a registered landscape architect on the project, which is required for our planning board approval. And so we're providing landscaping on the site. We also have an invasive removal plan and a replanting plan that was created by our wetland scientist who creates that invasive removal plan and how to replant those areas. And essentially this entire project is within the 200-foot riverfront area. There's only a small area along the frontage. So there were some emails that kind of went around and kind of went back and forth, and honestly, I'm not a landscaper. So I'm collecting all of this information. I'm just trying to figure out a way to coordinate our project team between the wetland scientist and our registered landscape architect to come up with a plan that's approvable not only by this commission, but also by the planning board. And I know Nancy Irway is here tonight. She's the landscape expert for the planning board. And the planning board has asked that she approve our landscape plan prior to endorsement. So there's been some conversations in regards to a few different things. One of them being that we're proposing native plants on the site. I've learned a little bit more about what that means, whether it's a native or whether it's a cultivar of a native, and certainly Nan knows more about this than I do, and certainly so does the landscape architect. There had been a comment from Laura, who's on here tonight, about the use of cultivars was specific to one plant that we were using. So we'd like to talk a little bit about that. The second conversation has to do with the Norway maples on site. And I know we spoke about the Norway maples when we were on site, and the fact that they are not, or an invasive plant, not something, or an invasive tree per se, not something that you want to see out there. Our wetland scientist was incredibly concerned about the removal of the Norway maples. Essentially, his concern is that we'll essentially take out essentially all tree cover in the area between the pavement and the building all the way to the river. And therefore, without all those shade trees, even if we were to replant native trees in those areas, they would be certainly much more immature than what's out there today. He's also worried that by taking out all of those mature trees, that the invasives will take off, because suddenly there'll be tons of sunlight there for them to be able to prosper even more. So certainly that's another thing that I'd like to talk to the commission about tonight, is whether or not it makes sense to essentially eradicate all of the trees between the project and the brook and replace it with native trees, have it grow back in. Greg Hockmith, our wetland scientist, basically said Norway maples really make up a lot of the tree cover along the rivers in the town of Chelmsford. So it's kind of, we're stuck in a place where I don't know how to direct my professionals to get us to the finish line. So I'd like to have essentially conversations. Those are the only things that are still kind of question marks out there. I know Phil just made it back from vacation. I see Donna Reddy is here tonight. And we're looking forward to working with them. And really, besides that, I don't know, David, if you want to kind of start the conversation.
Sure. And I don't know whether you want to start or not, Laura, but I think there are two primary issues here. One is the landscape plan. Well, actually, probably three. One is the landscape plan, one is the riverfront area restoration plan, and the other one, as Katie mentioned, is the Norway maples. I think the commission's primary concern is for the restoration of the degraded riverfront. I don't feel cultivars should be used in the riverfront restoration plan. I don't have a problem with them used in the landscape plan. Because I think there are two different intents there, and satisfaction of two different performance standards under the Wetlands Protection Act. So that's my opinion on the cultivars in the landscape plan versus the riverfront restoration plan. I'd also like to see the Norway maples go. Yeah, I know it probably will result in quite a bit of clearing of the riverfront area, and yeah, it will open up the area, at least temporarily, to more invasives coming in. But I think that there needs to be a perpetual invasive management plan. That has to be regularly administered and implemented for the riverfront area. I think that's definitely needs to be a part of the commission's approval. Something that really goes on forever to keep the restored riverfront area natural.
All right, thanks, David. Thanks, Laura. You're out there on the screen. Can you?
I'm here.
Good. Yeah, there you are. Do you have any comments you'd like to share with the commission at this point, specific to these two issues, the Norway maples and also the native trees versus the cultivars and that type of thing?
Sure. I agree with David's assessment that cultivars in the restoration area are not preferred, but providing them in the landscape area, if it's a cultivar of a native species, it still provides more habitat than a species, a non-native species, which might not a cultivar, but a non-native species. I know there was one particular species that we had noted in our kind of follow-up short email of a couple of things that needed to be dealt with to wrap up this project review. And that one species was on the planting plan of Potentilla abbotswood. I guess my question is, what is the actual species of that? And I don't know, Katie, if you can answer that question, because there is a native within that genus that is native to the area, but I just wasn't sure if what species in that genus was being proposed that has that name as the cultivar. So that was our major question relating to the landscaping. I think, again, it's a landscaped area, so it's not supposed to be, necessarily, it's not supposed to be habitat restoration in the way that the restoration area is. But it is nice to still use native species in landscaping to provide some level of habitat in those areas. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add on that.
Thanks, Laura. Appreciate that perspective. Nancy, do you have any comments you'd like to make? I know you sent an email or two out. Maybe you can just address the commission with your thoughts on this issue.
Thank you much, Nancy Arroway. Precinct, 8, I believe now, and Planning Board. So my concern is that within a development project, the plant material is coming from nurseries. Any material that's in a nursery is vegetatively propagated. In other words, it's cloned. So it is, by definition, a cultivar. It is not a random seedling. Within a given species, there's a lot of variability. The one that started this is the eastern redwood, I believe. It's a juniper family. And within the species, there's just tremendous variability. It can grow up to 60 feet high and 30 or more feet across. Well, if they end up with a cultivar, because it will be a cultivar if it comes from a nursery, it's vegetatively produced, that is on the large side of the variability, it's going to tremendously outgrow its space and have to be chopped down. I mean, it's just the fact. I mean, it's going to grow into the buildings. What they need for their landscape is something that is columnar. So they need something that's going to go no more than about 20 feet high and, 8 feet across. Same species. It's just a different variation within that species that was deemed to be desirable for a reason. This particular reason is it stays put in its space. And it was vegetatively propagated in order to get those traits into this production line. So when Katie told me that the Conservation Commission was not permitting cultivars, and I was looking at the plans in terms of what plants are you using, and she says, I can't specify what I'm using. And I'm there, I can't approve something that's going to have to be chopped down. And then I looked, more at the, I think it was Michigan's agricultural site or something that had a big blurb on this particular species and its cultivars. And it tells me that, oh, by the way, the species is notorious for carrying a disease that wipes out apple trees and other pit fruit. So now we've got the crab apples across the street in the park. And if we use a non-specified clone, we may very well be just killing off the park trees. It's like, I can't approve this. So that's why I'm here tonight, is to talk about this whole concept of we can't use, a cultivar is not a wild plant. So cultivars are nothing more than selections from a species that have good traits, that have been shown to have good traits, that propagate consistently with those traits. I'm here to ask you to seriously reconsider the whole issue of cultivars. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Nancy. Appreciate it. Laura, what were your thoughts, if you could respond to some of the points that Nancy made?
Yeah, absolutely. So our comment letter related to the cultivars was not saying that you can't plant cultivars. It says provide a justification for your cultivars. So there are cultivars that basically when you're selecting out certain, you're selecting a plant for a certain trait. It might result in a plant that's sterile, or it might result in a plant that has some different colored leaves, which won't host certain caterpillars and things like that. So there are while they make those selections, and they essentially move the genes, or they don't move the genes, but they select out certain traits to create a plant that's desirable for aesthetics, or what have you, different larger berries, size, things like that. That certain habitat elements of those species might also get kind of, they won't provide those habitat elements. However, all we were asking for is some justification, whether it's, this is a better variation for this location because it's smaller and we don't want to have to take down the trees. That's a justification. The disease resistance, also a great justification for, selecting a specific named variety or a cultivar of that species. I don't think that our comment was saying, no cultivars. It was just saying, provide a justification. And I think that it sounds like the applicant has worked with a great team who is working to provide those justifications. So I don't see an issue with the cultivars as long as the justification is provided.
Okay, thanks, Laura. All right, let's see if the commission's got some questions or comments. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the applicant should just continue to work with staff and come up with a plan that everyone's, I think, the landscape architect should be able to work with everybody and come up with a plan that's, ultimately going to work for everybody. I don't think we necessarily touched on the Norway maple portion of it. I mean, obviously, I think the commission knows that if you're taking a bunch of trees down, it's going to take a while for those new trees to, get big and have any sort of canopy on there. So I'm not sure what everybody else's, comments are for the maples.
I'm a little bit nervous about taking all those Norway maples and losing a cover out there, to be honest, because like you said, it's going to take some years to grow that back, so.
Is it even allowed in Riverfront to basically cut everything down essentially?
Well, if it's part of a restoration project, yes. I mean, I think Norway maples are well known to be invasive, and removing invasives, from degraded riverfront area and then restoring them, I certainly, in my opinion, would be permitted under the regulations. Do you agree with that, Laura?
I do agree with that. And there's one other factor with Norway maples that the two things. One, they have incredible shade cover, which is great for providing shading of your streams. It provides colder water. There's a lot of benefits to having a thick canopy, but the thick canopy also restricts light to the restoration areas below. So that's one consideration, that if you're planting below Norway maples, there might not be enough light to actually establish the proposed native vegetation. And then the other concern with Norway maple is it also has, it releases chemicals from its roots, which can deter, and it has a very superficial root system, so it can deter growth of native vegetation beneath it. So that is something, again, that, if you're restoring an area below a Norway maple canopy, you might have trouble, establishing native vegetation.
Okay, well, thanks.
I guess my only question to that is, I assume this is it's the same area that was right across the brook when, was it Grist Mill, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't recall us making them cut all the trees down over Grist
Right.
Mill, so, I don't know, just my 2 cents.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Bill, comments on these issues?
Yeah, Katie, how many of those trees are on your client's land, and how many of those are on the grist mill's land?
Well, that's the thing, so our property line is essentially right here,
Right.
and then it goes like this. So this area is on our property, and really, there's really no trees on our property here. They're all on the grist mill.
So they're all on the grist mill's property?
Majority of them are, yeah.
And you don't have an agreement with them at this
We do
point,
not.
one way or another?
And we typically, in talking to my wetland scientist, we don't agree that the Norway maples should go. So that is a continued conversation. I don't think Gristmill wants to see the Norway maples go. They're concerned already about the amount of vegetation between them and this project. So that's certainly gonna be something that we're gonna have to talk about in that negotiation as to whether or not we are able to do that.
So really, there's none on your land right now that,
There's some in this area here.
Yeah.
But you can see the tree line is here on our
Right.
property and here. And
So
then
how-
there's some along the side here. which we can get rid of and
Right.
replant as part of the landscaping plan, but as far as the area between the project and the river is where we're talking about taking them out.
Right, so it's gonna depend on whether you have some kind of agreement and what that agreement is with grist mill. I mean, you can have an agreement to take out some of the other invasive plants, but maybe they don't want those trees taken down. So it's gonna be, lots determined on that agreement you guys either have or don't have. As far as the other landscaping, I'm gonna let you guys work it out with the people who know what
Right,
they're
so-
talking about.
Yeah, no, but I've heard two comments. I've heard, we don't care if you use cultivars outside of the restoration area, but we want you to justify cultivars outside the restoration area. So I mean, essentially, the whole project's in the riverfront, so every cultivar we use on the site would have to be justified. Is that what you're looking for?
If you're asking for me personally, I think I'm mostly interested in the use of shrubs and if you're planting any trees that are cultivars, those are what I'm primarily interested in. But you know, if you feel, if the commission feels that and David feels that, you know, they can be used in landscaping, that's fine too. I mean, they are still, you know, native species. They're just, you know, they just have been selected for specific traits. And, you know, I don't want to speak for the commission, but, you know, if the commission and David are comfortable with it being used in landscaping, then I am too.
So Katie, the way it is right now, if you would take down the Norway maples that are on
No,
your
my
property.
wetland scientist is only the ones that are not part of the restoration plan.
Right.
Only the ones located within the newly landscaped areas of the lot.
Okay.
So basically the western side.
Basically, the area that's developed essentially from the project in. There's a few Norway maples along this side. On our property, we would take them down and replant that area. But anything from here, and in this, we could grab the ones in this little corner here, as I know that we talked about that. This is kind of a weird little area, kind of between a parking lot and a parking lot, that we're gonna show on the new plan. But then everything basically within the tree line to the river, we wouldn't touch the Norway maples.
Yeah, and then I can see some benefits as far as shade and also, you know, visual screening, certainly for budding properties.
I mean, it's gonna take years for trees to grow.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
Yeah, so I'd be cautious, honestly, you know, on that.
So some would
Bill?
go, some may stay.
Well, basically, the ones on our prepared landscape plan
Would go.
would go.
The restoration area,
Restoration area, they would stay. We're taking
Stay.
out all of basically everything underneath the canopy that's invasive, or that's what we're proposing.
right.
And Greg Hockmuth had put together a list of basically, like, all of this stuff needs to go. This is how you take care of it. This is how many years and how much it's gonna cost to take care of it. This is what you need to do perpetually to make sure it stays gone. And these are the things that we're gonna put in its place. But I believe we're all native species, the list that he provided.
So you're agreeing to pretty much do what we're looking for on your property. You're gonna have to have an agreement with the other people, and that'll determine what happens to those trees, and I think we're gonna have to wait till we find out what the agreement is. They may not want those trees taken down on their land, and we can't deny your project for that reason, because they don't. It's not your property. But from what I'm hearing, you'll find with doing the ones that are on the landscape part of your property, so I'm good.
All right, good. Mark, comments?
Yeah, about the trees that around the houses you're gonna plant around there for shading and to cultivars, I don't know anything about. It's something I wouldn't suggest to do, because it's not my job to, what kind of trees to put there. That's what you guys are here for. The ones on the back there that, between the properties, more so on the grist mill. There's some widowmakers here that you're gonna have to take down, right, just for safety reasons. And is there an in-between? I mean, can you take out some of the stuff? Again, I'm asking you a question that's, nobody has the answer for, because you don't have an agreement yet.
Right.
I guess I'm kinda wasting what I'm trying to say. Probably, I'm good for now, until we get an agreement. I'd like to give you more information, but getting back to where the developing of the houses is, again, that's totally up to you and your scientists.
All right. Thanks, Mark. John, comments?
I was just wondering about these elms way out front on the plan here. Are these there now?
One's next to the street?
I
Yeah,
think,
right
I think
next
that's,
to the street.
I think that's all proposed.
It's all proposed.
So, no.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, these are all proposed plans. They're not there now.
They're proposed elms?
They're new street trees. So they're elms, so that if you go up here, it tells you what type.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was trying to,
it's kind of, it's a Princeton elm.
yeah, I didn't think elms did good. That's,
I don't have a stamp in landscaping. The registered landscape architect provided those as
yeah.
a
I'm
street
just
tree, as a
surprised at
street
that.
tree.
I'm just surprised at
Okay.
elms. Okay, it might be an entirely different type of elm.
Could it be
than
a,
I'm used to.
yeah, yes, go ahead, Laura.
Oh, I was gonna say, it's a cultivar, and
That's what I was gonna say. It's probably a cultivar, enhanced genetically.
Nan might know the answer to this
Cloned.
better than me, but it probably, if it's selected from a landscape architect, it's probably some like disease resistant to the Dutch elm disease, which is what kills a lot of the elms and
Right.
why elms don't do well.
Yeah.
So that would be a good reason to go with a cultivar in this case.
That'd be a
but
justification, yes.
Justification
Absolutely, yeah.
To go with the cultivar, right.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with everybody else about, we gotta come up with a discussion on the grist mill. They're basically their trees.
Right.
So until we know what's going on there, you're just gonna clean up what, on your property, there's no problem with that.
I know, I guess what I want to know though is, does the commission as a whole want those trees? Do I ask the grist mill, can I cut down all the Norway maples? Or does the commission agree with that or not before I go there?
I don't know. I'm hearing both sides,
Yeah,
I'm just trying to let the commission understand, from a practicality point of view, it's gonna take a long time
For
for
the
those
maturity
trees
to come
to
back again.
Yeah.
provide the cover and all that kind of stuff. I think if they're, personally, I think if they're providing an invasive species management plan that their wetland scientist is signing off on, that their registered professional, landscape architect is signing off on for the landscaping plan, I'd be very wary of cutting down some big trees.
I'm kind of cautiously on Chris's
But
perspective
again,
on
it's also
that.
up to the applicant. And
Yeah,
right, yeah.
yeah. Nancy, some more comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to provide a perspective on that in terms of planning board applications. One of the biggest complaints that we get from adjacent properties is loss of privacy because of taking down border trees. So please be sensitive to the fact that you've got a whole nother series of apartments right next door that are going to be looking window to window.
Yeah, I feel that's gonna be a bone of contention. There's no
I mean,
question.
I think that's a really good point, And I mean, I spent 6 years on the planning board myself, and that always was the number one issue. Screening and trying to maintain privacy and trying to keep, the properties, everybody happy,
But we gotta give Katie some kind of direction too.
Right, that's what she's here for. I mean, do we take a straw vote?
Yeah, we could just poll it. I mean, all we can do is poll the commissioners and.
I mean, Dave's not here, so Dave's a wild card when he gets back anyway.
It's on TV.
Yeah, jeez.
Is Dave out there on TV?
Dave's in TV
Dave's
land.
watching,
Dave's always watching.
Dave's watching.
So anyways, I think we heard Chris's opinion on this, you know?
I think the planning board representative is also kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah, and I agree with that position as well, too, so that's where I'm at.
I agree with that too.
I think we're more concerned with what is along the bankings. Wasn't that one of our concerns, to get the invasives out of there? Not so
Yeah.
much the tree cover
Yeah,
or taking
Right.
trees out.
Yeah,
I
it's
think in the
the
beginning, we
bittersweet,
talked
it's
about being indigenous.
yeah,
And that's what it's, I didn't know it went beyond that.
Yeah.
It's gonna take on a whole new life.
yeah, I mean,
Beyond that.
it's the bittersweet, it's the knotwood, you know?
Right, that's
I
what I
think that's kind
understood.
of, that's what we always kind of talk about from a commission's point of view,
Yeah.
is the bittersweet, it's the
Yeah.
Japanese
Right.
knotweed.
Yeah,
And I think that's the direction I think we're trying to give the
Right.
applicant.
Right.
Yeah,
I know, we never really discussed them taking trees down, did we, in the beginning?
I don't think we did.
I think Carl was interested.
I think Carl was focused on
Well,
that, yeah.
He doesn't like Norway maples.
I know, he's strong,
He's not here tonight.
but,
Well, I think a lot of it's gone up to the gristmill people,
Yeah,
what they want and don't want. As far as I'm concerned, I'd rather listen to the professionals and see what they have to say.
Yeah.
So as far as the Norway maples, as far as I'm concerned, if they're left, they're fine, that's fine. I would like to see them taken off your land if that works. So I think we get a piece of it anyway. And,
all right.
any more questions you had, Katie, that you needed direction?
okay. And this is a public meeting, so if someone from the public has anything they'd like to say, come on down. Come on in, come on up, Donna.
I'm Donna Reddy, Precinct 8, President of the Gristmill Condo Association. And I'm here because of exactly that. Three things we had in mind, but one was the Norway maples were a concern of ours. We didn't know how many there would be and how many would need to come down, but we were also concerned what would be put in its place. And I totally agree with you that it would take way too many years to finally get that same kind of privacy screening kind of thing back into that area. So we would be really against taking any Norway maples down on our property. We've looked at the plan for the invasive species and the things that they are going to put in its place. That seems to be fine. We did the site walk to see where everything was. So our concern is, first, the Norway maples. We did not want to see come down. Second, we'd like to know, and maybe it's because I was a little late, I thought we were further on the agenda, as to when would this project be done? Would it be done at the very beginning of starting to build, where you're taking, getting the land ready for the building? Are you going to be also taking care of the invasive plants at that time? Our concern is to do it first rather than later, because we don't want to have the builder come in, do it as his final little thing. He takes care of the invasive species and then he's gone, and the condo association is left with taking care of watching it and monitoring it. We're hoping if it's done first, that it would be monitored at least within the first 6 months and maybe perhaps the year that it would take to build this project out, that the builder would be watching over this before it's handed to a condo association. So that's on our concern. And it was also mentioned that we have asked for, but we haven't seen yet, any kind of an agreement between us. And before we can tell you that we are in agreement of doing something, we want to see in writing what exactly that agreement is. So those are the things that we're looking for right now with this situation.
Thanks, Donna.
Okay.
Appreciate your input. All right, any last comments from our professional advisors? Laura?
Yeah, I do. I just have one more comment. I do understand absolutely the desire to keep the cover and keep the trees there for shading. As you did say, there's a couple of trees that are down or partially down that will need to come out. I would recommend, though, that the Norway maple seedlings at least be covered in the invasive species management plan, so that while they're doing their invasive management for the bittersweet and knotweed and Japanese barberry and all of the other invasives that are out there, that they would also pull just the tiny seedlings. Like you're not pulling the trees, but any new sprouts. I would recommend that be included in the.
That makes sense, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Laura. Mr. Coons, anything further?
No, I really don't. I mean, I guess my main question is with regard to the cultivars in the riverfront restoration area. I mean, how does the commission feel about that? I mean, I've certainly worked on plenty of replanting and restoration and wetland restoration projects where, we were able to get some pretty wild species, examples of the species. But I think at this point it would be and I'm happy to talk to a couple of the consultants that I've worked with in the past. On the other hand, then it's costing the applicant additional money. If the commission wants to go that route, it's up to you.
All right. Nancy?
Yeah, just a question, please, so that I have a better understanding of what's happening with this restoration plan and the time frame of it in regards to the building plan. I understand that there's knotweed in this area, and that's included in it. And I have to assume that there are limitations on the chemicals that can be used to eradicate that stuff because of the riverfront area? Is that true?
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. That is true. And MDR has a list of approved chemicals that you can use within a riverfront area within proximity to rivers. So that would be something that we could recommend or help the commission with some recommended special conditions related to, providing the MSDS prior to construction and things like that for any type of herbicides that would be used.
Could you provide me some perspective on how long it takes to get rid of knotweed using those approved herbicides?
Well, it takes a while, 3-4 years of maintenance. The first treatment is usually, you get rid of some of it. Ideally, they'd be excavating a little bit to remove some of the rhizomes, but it does take a while. Can take up to 7 years of consistent treatments.
So do we have a maintenance plan for this that goes along with the building plan?
Yes, so there was, at the last meeting, I believe, you all have it, and I believe Greg called out, there's 2 instances, I thought, where he talked about chemical usage on the site and called out which chemicals there would be. I could send that to you as a PDF. Just
Please.
So you can see it. So it's a written narrative that talks about the invasives on site, basically the different species of invasives, how they will be eradicated, how long it takes, what needs to be done, when it needs to be done.
And is this expected to be the responsibility of the condo association?
Once it's turned over, yes.
So that will all be part of the condo, the agreements and contracts?
Correct.
Okay.
Like ongoing conditions like the order.
All right. Well, Katie, I think we had a pretty good discussion tonight. I think it gives you a little bit of direction. I mean, certainly we've got our agents and, consulting engineer, et cetera, to help work out further details around this, but I think you got a sense of where the commissioners are coming from.
Yep, no, I believe I have some good direction, and we will work with the project attorney and Grist Mill and hopefully be back before you.
I have one question. Katie, that, the yearly maintenance on the evasives?
Yep.
Would that be just strictly on your property, or would it be the stuff you'd pulling out of Grist Mill
No, it would have
also?
to go, it would have to go that,
It'd be
yeah, it
both.
wouldn't do any good to do it once and
Okay,
just
so
let
that's
it go.
gonna be part
So-
of your
Right,
discussions
it would
with
be
them.
part of the agreement with Grist
Okay,
Mill, would have to be
okay.
that ongoing
Okay.
maintenance, or it would just, right, it
Did
would
you
just
ever, do you happen to know when that would be done? Would it be in the beginning of the
I
project?
don't. I will double check with Greg about, when it might make sense to do it. There may be certain seasons where it makes more sense to do this.
I mean,
so-
the initial work. as
Right.
part of the
No, it would
project.
depend on, I think it would depend on time of year. I mean, there's some demolition, obviously, that needs to be done with the building and the pavement, and where that fits in with things. I think there's probably some, and I don't have the report in front of me that
Yeah.
he wrote, but there's probably better times of year to eradicate,
So
certain
maybe that could be
species.
part of your at the next meeting, you could let us know.
Yeah, I could talk about that, sure.
Okay, good.
We've got, our next meeting is June 14th, and we also meet on June 28th. Any preference on those two dates?
Let's try for the 14th, please.
All right. Okay,
I know, a
So
week
one question.
beforehand, I would need to submit all the information.
yep.
So, did you wind up getting out there to do test pits for the stormwater, and have you been
Yep.
able to update your plans based on that?
Yes, yep, all the drainage has been updated. There was a couple of minor comments for the peer review for the stormwater aspects of it, so there's some minor changes to the drainage plan based on that. They wanted us to meet, even though it was a redevelopment project, they wanted us to meet the phosphorus requirement. So we switched out the Rain Guardian for a focal point to get that additional phosphorus removal. And I believe that was the only change. But no, the soils were good.
Okay.
So we had some fill on top of sandy material. So we did them on both sides of the building. So that's all been updated.
Good, all right. We have a motion to continue then to June 14th.
So,
Moved, seconded by Mark. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None unanimous. Thank you very much,
Thank
Katie.
you all very much.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Laura.
everyone.
Yes.
The next item we have on tonight's agenda is a notice of intent. This has been continued from March 1st, 2022. The applicant is Town of Chelmsford, related to Turnpike Road. And I believe we had a request from the applicants to continue to what date?
June 14th.
June 14th. So if we have a motion then to continue to June 14th?
So moved.
So moved by Chris, seconded by Mark. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None, unanimous. All right, so that takes us through our regulatory hearings for this evening. Now we move on to our discussion items. The loss of the Eagle Independent for the, basically the legal notices for public hearings. So we've, for, I don't know how many years it's been a long time. The legal ads have been in the Eagle Independent, but they're, when did they stop that service?
May 6th was their last print edition and their last edition with legal notices. So now we have to use the Lowell Sun, which is a bit more expensive, although I've had a chance to think about this a little bit more. And number one, I think it's, all the newspapers charge on the basis of the number of words. I think I can cut down on the verbosity of some of these ads, especially for the typical homeowner. The other thing that could be done, and the commission does have this authority, that the commission could authorize me to waive the RDA filing fee for certain minor projects. So I can just use the example of Lancaster, where an RDA there for a single-family home was $100, and then the cost of the legal notice was about another $55, another $60. So I think in the case of waiving the RDA filing fee for a single-family home, and then reducing the verbosity of the legal notices, I think we could probably cut it down to the neighborhood, the total cost of a couple of $100 for a
I like
filing.
that. That's good thinking. I also like the reducing the verbosity of the legal notices, because that'll make us more efficient, and we'll drive through our agenda probably in perhaps significantly less time if there's less verbosity in the legal notices. that
Well,
we have.
I've seen some examples of like the ZBA uses. And
Yeah.
yeah, it is a little bit terser than what I've been used to using, so
Yeah.
I definitely take advantage of that.
Yeah. And I know in the commissioners, I've always been sympathetic to the average taxpayer in town.
Right,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. So, again, if the commission could vote to authorize me to waive the filing fee at my discretion, I mean, you don't have to do that tonight, you can think about it. So, it's up to you.
Let's put that on for a vote next meeting.
I think the only advantage of going to the Lowell Sun as opposed to the Independent is it comes out every day. So you can, is that true? Because you can,
Well, there is a less lead time, that's for sure. Like 3 or 4 days, whereas it was a couple weeks for the Independent. But the regulations still say that a legal notice has to be posted in a print edition of a newspaper, and that leaves only the Lowell Sun.
no, I understand,
no choice.
I understand that, yeah. But it leaves a little more to the last minute as opposed to
True.
using.
There's some advantage, yeah.
Yep, agreed.
Good. All right,
So-
well, thanks for the update on that.
I think there's a resolution there.
Yeah, that's better news than before. Gristmill. The Gristmill folks have
So,
left, but what's happening with the Gristmill?
So the commission tasked me with going back and looking at some of the minutes to come up with what was agreed to. And so I did that. What I've got up on the screen right now, let me see if I can enlarge this a little bit more. This is the minutes from the night the notice of intent hearing was closed. And you can see where I've highlighted.
Sounds about right.
In yellow here, the property management company has agreed to clean up trash in the brook. Now, that wasn't explicitly included in the order of conditions, but I think that it's been memorialized in the minutes.
That's our recollection. We were really clear on remembering that, yeah.
So I think, in my opinion, this would have the same force and effect as if this were an actual condition in the order of conditions. So I don't know what the status of cleaning up the trash in the brook is. I don't know whether there's more to do.
What's the definition of trash?
At the time, you guys were talking about tires
Yep.
and
Yeah?
paper and garbage and,
Nothing about invasives.
no.
No.
No,
That's not
this was
trash.
man-made wind
But
and people
invasives were
toss
part
shit
of
in the
it.
brook.
If I can remember that, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I say it's just stuff that people have left or the wind has blown in or however it got there. Like, it wasn't invasives. There was discussion about invasives, I remember that,
Yeah,
but there was also a lot of
Trash,
discussion about garbage.
the garbage.
Yeah, I don't necessarily remember the invasive as well as much as the trash. You know, when we did the site walk, there was tires and
Oh, it was pretty bad.
junk and stuff like that. I'm not saying we didn't talk about invasives, but I just don't remember.
I don't know if an electronic minutes would give him more information.
We only keep those for so long. How long do we have the recordings for?
I don't know, because I don't have the machine.
Oh. Actually,
That
that's,
would be
that would be a good thing to look into,
an
David, is how long we have those recorded tapes for.
Sure, I can check on that. This goes back to 2016.
Yeah.
They may not go back that far.
But David, the COC hasn't been signed off on that yet. right?
Correct, and I was just about to say that I think, again, the fact that we have it memorialized in the minutes, I think it'd be perfectly reasonable for the commission to, as a condition for the COC, make sure that all the trash in the brook has been cleaned up.
Anybody have a problem with that?
I think it's perfectly reasonable.
Anybody have an issue with that approach?
But there's nothing in there for invasives anywhere.
No, that doesn't appear to have been an issue.
I think that's.
I think we have David pursue that.
Hmm.
It seems pretty reasonable to me, and it's right there.
Yeah, yep.
All right, good.
So now I just have to get them to request a certificate of compliance.
Yeah. Well, they're,
Keep-
they've been regulars here.
We'll, I'll keep working on it.
Yeah,
All of those units were obviously purchased. Some were under resale.
yeah.
The COC doesn't have any impact on resales of not being signed off yet. My understanding, is that correct? Don't you normally have to have all your COC signed off before you can transfer ownership?
It depends on the closing attorneys, honestly.
But I thought the banks are looking for it.
A lot of them are looking for that stuff now, but,
But you don't have that power with the condo association because if you get 25 units,
yeah.
you can't hold up 25 sales.
I mean, you could. It depends on the bank's attorney and the closing attorney, what their position is.
But
But we're not intending to do that.
No, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
next, the one Katie's presenting now to us.
Yeah.
If that work's gonna be going on for 5 years, 7 years, to do all the, taking the invasives out of there with chemicals, whatever after you would, doing hand work, how do you enforce it if it doesn't get done?
Well, I mean, ultimately, we with like subdivisions would kind of typically wait on the subdivisions before we, did the COC until the work was done to our satisfaction.
Well, in my orders of conditions, I explicitly include a requirement that if there's an open order of conditions on the property, then it must be referenced in the deed. So that way, all the attorneys, all the buyers and sellers know that there's an open
Okay.
order of conditions on the property. And my experience has been that more often than not, 9 times out of 10, they want the certificate of compliance before the transaction closes in that case.
Yeah, I mean, I had a refinancing myself a few years ago where, it had gone through about 2 or 3 refinancing, not an issue, but, got in a situation where the closing attorney was a stickler for having it right, and it became an issue that I had to get, clean it up, get it done.
But if the COC is not satisfied, how do you give that?
We could do a partial.
Well, you can do a partial, you can do a holdback.
Yeah.
I actually prefer doing a holdback because sometimes partials are recorded as full certificates of compliance. So, I think I think there's another situation like that coming up as well, up on Walter Weald Road.
Okay.
There was, the commission approved some condos up there that now they're getting ready to close on those. And I recently got a call about, what do we do about the certificate of compliance? So
Glenview.
I'm actually meeting with a developer out there tomorrow to come up with a plan.
But, yeah, historically, we did partials in the past, but.
We're kind
I'd
of
be
lax
interested-
on a prior.
Well,
It
it
sounds like
ebbed and
David's got
flowed.
it.
I like your idea about the holdback, though. I kind of like that idea, so. And there were times when we did the partial thing, and there were other times when we really did. It ebbed and flowed, right? Depending on the administration in charge.
Shots fired, shots fired.
Let's see, so we're talked about, Grist Mill. All right. The designation of River Neck Road and Smith Street Reservations as wildlife refuges, okay? So this is something that Dave had kind of championed a little bit, and it seems like a great idea.
And I can give an update on those. Part of, there was some uncertainty as to whether both areas actually were under the care, custody, and control of the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
I've done a little bit of research, and I have verified that most of the parcels in the River Neck Road, up in there in the River Meadow Brook area, most of those are under the Commission's care and control. I was able to find
Good.
the town meetings where the transfers were voted.
Good.
The same appears to also be the case for Smith, but I haven't had a chance to make quite as much progress on that area. So I think this is, I think that concern should be dispensed with, that, it is the commission's land, and the commission can make these designations. We should talk about it. The River Neck Road area is, because it's the National Grid easement, is kind of already been pretty well trashed. I think and I've tried to work with National Grid to correct some of the issues up there, but it's not just them. It's a couple of the corporate owners up there. So I think it would be a good thing to designate it as a wildlife refuge, but it would be a matter of getting cooperation with some of the abutters and National Grid to actually realize the true intent.
All right, well, I think it's a good idea. Do we want to take a vote tonight, or do you guys
Wait
want to
till
wait?
Dave's here.
Be nice to wait till Dave's here, because Dave's been the champion of this idea, which is a really good idea. So let's continue it to our next meeting when Dave's back, but it'd be really good if we just take a vote, because I think that's like the next step, take the vote. So we'll continue it then to next meeting, give Dave a chance to be here. All right. Oddfellows.
Human.
Oddfellows, yes.
Good evening, member Annie from Oddfellows Project. I'm here regarding the RDA that David asked us to file for work that we intend to do with the unfinished part of that addition next to the brook. And the general contractor who approached Dave was asking to set a staging inside the brook in order to get the work that needs to be done on the face of the newly constructed retaining wall underneath the building from the outside. But most of the work would be done from underneath the structure there. But the face of it has to be done from the outside. And we have already presented the procedure for the siding. So once that retaining wall is done, the face of that will be covered with the same siding that would be on the side of the building.
And that was
So it'd be
looking really
seamless.
good, too. That's looking good, that's.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We get in there, slowly
You're
but
getting there,
surely.
yeah, you're getting there, yeah. Yeah, I could see why you'd want to do that.
And he also tasked us to also clean the brook while we're there. So we glad to do that.
Yes. So,
Now that I know what the definition of trash is in the book, I can
Absolutely.
proceed.
Fair enough.
You know it when you see it, right?
Yes.
again, I just want to make it clear, Human, this is not the hearing tonight.
Correct.
So this was just an informal conversation, discussion with the commission, make sure the commission was okay with the RDA for the work. I think that there's the potential here to improve existing conditions in three ways. First of all, I think to enclose this area, makes a lot of sense. I think that's definitely an improvement.
Yeah.
It's just become almost a dumping place for junk and, people throwing trash in there. So I think to enclose that will stop that. Another way I think this can be improved, and I didn't talk about this with you, Human, but I talked about it with Brian. Just see where I'm moving the cursor here. You can't see too much of it, but over on this side, this is degraded riverfront area where I talked to Brian about bringing in some topsoil, planting some grass to make that a little bit more natural. It's just bare dirt right now with old paint chips and stuff in it. And then, as you mentioned, cleaning up the stream bed, getting the trash out of there, say for the length of the property that you own. I think that would be a really good thing to do. And yes, there is the staging. The staging temporarily would have to go in the brook, but I don't. It's going to have negligible impact. I think it's far better to get the trash out of the stream as part of this project.
Do you think it by hand?
Yeah, I think.
I mean, I would think that would be the easiest way to locate and just as they go grab.
How deep is it right there? How
A
deep's the
whole
wall?
foot, I think.
Is that what it is?
But it could be
It
done.
can, it can rise.
Yeah, it could be done at
rise.
low flow
Yeah.
conditions. I mean, if
Yeah.
it were done in August, then where there maybe
That'd
3
be
or 4
ideal,
inches.
yeah, that'd be ideal.
Yeah. So which can certainly be a condition. It doesn't have to be done right away, but I think that it could be done without a lot of trouble. By hand, just putting on some boots.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really.
Right. Just to go back to that surface alongside of the building, away from the addition.
Yeah.
Also, Brian, our general contractor, pointed out that all the water that runs off, it's penetrating through the soil behind the rocks on the wall.
I believe
And
it.
it's expanding and loosening the rocks. So I understand the need for resurfacing that area, but I'm not sure if topsoil and gravel will do the job because the water still penetrates. And that wall, which belongs to the town, is in major need of repair. And this is only gonna make it worse as the time goes by without addressing that runoff water. Closing that underneath area will basically ensure that the pylons and everything that's underneath is not weakened anymore due to erosion. But the other part doesn't really protect the wall if we just put the topsoil and gravel. So I don't know if you guys would be open to the idea of surfacing that with a harder material that the water would run off into the brook versus going through the soil and through the wall, because that would be a better solution long-term for the wall, if nothing else.
Well, I like to see it collected on the roof and put into a dry well. I mean, that's ideally what you're supposed
Yeah.
to do there.
Yeah,
And if we saw the plans, if we approved that in the beginning,
yeah.
That's definitely doable. I guess then we have to go back to also Historic Commission to see if they would approve the static
I don't know
of it.
what was spec'd out in the beginning. I don't think we'd let it sheet into the brook like that, would we?
No, no, we'd want to, hold it.
But that should be I don't know what the plans, are.
I remember there was a whole disconnect
Yeah.
previously.
Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly,
I
well said.
recall.
Yeah, well said, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we're all in kind of agreement that the engineer should address that
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be a part of this project, but yeah, no, I think if the infiltration is causing that wall to deteriorate and it's the town's problem, then definitely if there's something that can be done to address that at the same time meet, the stormwater requirements and regulations, yeah, that'd be great if you could look into that.
Well, we take guidance from you, whatever you and the commission suggest. We'll do it that way. But right now, we are placing the new gutters and the downspouts. So placing those with your suggestion of the collection system is imperative to know that sooner rather than later, because those downspouts are being placed as we speak.
Okay, well, I should probably do a site visit with you and you can
I
show
see
me.
you every week, so more than welcome. Let me know. I'll meet you there.
Sure.
I mean, I would think that's whether it's if you have a geotechnical engineer that's on site, or your structural engineer for the wall, or your site engineer, they should have some input rather than members of the commission or even you.
Right.
There should be some professional looking at it to see what can be done.
Right.
I mean, although it might be a town wall, it's occurring from their property, so I think there needs to be some discussion on what's the best way to do it.
Do you have an
making the
engineer
dry
working
well
with
might
you?
make it worse.
I'm sorry?
Do you have an engineer working with you on those things?
We have multiple ones, but fortunately, when it comes to the brook and the wall, as you mentioned, that belongs to the town, it's not just the conservation, it's not just the planning board, it's not just the historic, it's also the EPA. And they basically say hands off anything to do with the brook to all the different, commissions and departments that they have the oversight over everything. And we went through this when we were originally going through the whole process of development. They don't want anybody doing anything whatsoever. So, I mean, we talked about at some point having a, walking bridge over the brook out of our pocket to do that towards the future walkway that they were, proposing, the brook walk, and they didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So
I agree with Chris, though, it's not up to us to decide how you're gonna do it. I think an engineer would have to, and the engineer can deal with the DEP or whoever else is involved to okay it.
I mean, I understand that point of view. I just don't know, for preservation of the wall itself, that process going to EPA would take probably a couple of years.
Well, that might be true, but to deal with the drainage into that area, I mean, that shouldn't be a problem with the regulatory agencies, because
Yeah, I mean,
that would be considered an improvement.
right, I mean, the drainage, it's been draining from that building into the brook for over 100-some years that the building has been there. So, over time, I think that wall is not necessarily collapsing tomorrow, but you can see the deterioration on both sides, that parts of it have collapsed on either side of the brook. That we thought that would be a best way to address that deterioration of the wall. But if that's not something we want to address now, I understand. We can.
I think we want
Table
to
that.
address it, but I think we need an engineer to address it as opposed to us.
Well, it's really about like, David, if I'm not mistaken, like at the widest part is about 4 feet, comes
Yeah,
down to a foot,
4 to 5 feet, you know.
and comes to a foot, and is about 15 feet long. I mean, it's not, right now, what we have designed for the downspout is to come from the side and attach to the front, to the back of the building, and be discharged into the drainage that we have there. But there still will be excess rain, snow, everything else that would penetrate through the earth into behind that wall. And that's one problem that probably Brian brought it up to address that issue.
Yeah, and certainly an engineer could address it. I was looking at it more from a perspective of, you know, trying to make a very degraded area a little bit more natural. But I think that could be done at the same time.
Okay.
You know, both the drainage and, you know, adding a little bit more green space. But I certainly agree with the commission members to say that an engineer, a qualified engineer, needs to.
I do have to say that anything beside very light vegetation that has roots is going to cause more damage, as previous little shrubs that grown to trees there had really, the roots have really penetrated through the wall previously.
Yeah, no, but nothing more than grass should be planted.
Yeah, exactly.
You said when you put the downspouts, they're going to direct the water to your existing drainage?
So,
What do you have now for
the
drainage?
picture is not there, if I may.
Yeah,
It comes down right here.
yeah,
This is the end of the building.
right.
And right here, we have all the drainage system that's been in place to tie into that.
Where does that water go?
Whatever the drainage system has been previously in the building, we have it all around the perimeter of the building.
It all attaches,
Correct.
then goes into the brook at some point? would
I
think.
am not sure. I can't say yes or no for sure.
That's
but-
why we really need, I'd rather have an engineer here telling us where it's going so that we can do
We-
it properly.
That would be part of the original plans that was approved,
And I can check the plans.
because we have those part of the planning board, that was part of the conditions for the project.
I don't remember ever seeing that, Mike. Did we see that?
I will forward them again to David, and he can pass it along, whatever we have as far as the,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
as
don't-
we originally had.
I don't remember seeing anything on drainage.
It was part of the, that proposed building as well, because there's gonna be a whole redo of the sewer system and
Right,
drainage system, but.
but these
since it's-
specifics weren't addressed to us. as
No,
part-
because that project never went through, so then we are dealing with existing conditions.
Right.
I
So
see.
David, when are we, is the RDA have a date yet, or?
That'll be June 14th.
Okay, all right.
I
So
can,
yet have to provide you with the check.
yeah, when you have a chance.
Sure.
And I will go back and look at the already approved plans for what was done for building drainage. And I seem to have something in my brain about a cistern. Does that ring a bell, Lamont? No?
There've been so many different parts of the project that I can't recall exactly.
Was a lot of that discussed at the planning board as opposed to us?
They probably were at the time.
Right.
But don't forget, it's been since 2019. My memory doesn't serve me that well in details, but there's a whole host of conditions, and I'm sure that was part of the conditions that we have posted at the site
But-
as well.
Yeah, we weren't part of that. I mean, we
Yeah.
all know that,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm just myself trying to get a handle on the things that we didn't hear
Before,
through the planning board. I know what we heard for the project that was gonna be in the parking lot,
correct.
but a lot of things weren't addressed in that project that pertain to what you guys are doing now. I know you went to the planning board and you discussed some of these things, but it kind of circumvented us.
Right.
For
If
one
I'm-
reason or
If
another.
I'm not mistaken, Katie and Melissa, who were here before, that said that they had contacted the previous conservation officer before David
Yeah.
regarding all that
No, I don't-
information.
Right.
I'm not defending anyone.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no,
saying
no.
that's what the process was, I believe, at that
Yeah, I
point.
agree with you. So, when you do the RDA, maybe we can include these things that we kind of,
Well, I think the RDA is a good opportunity to make sure that things are done right.
Yeah.
You know? So,
yeah. Well,
and, you know,
Well, plus we'll be able to see an actual plan.
we'll
as
have a
part of
plan,
that,
yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that getting an RDA is a great thing.
and what you're doing there is great. It looks beautiful.
Well, thank you. I don't know, I'm not sure if I would have done it again if I had the opportunity to know
Well, it looks
what
nice.
was going on inside the building, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
It's end result would be nice.
I mean, we're not gonna see any more of a plan than what we're seeing here. So, I mean,
It's not gonna be a site plan showing.
no, Human did include a work sequence in the RDA, detailed work sequence, that will be there. I can mark up the approved plan to show where this is located.
I think that's what, me personally, I think that's what the commission's gonna be looking for. We need to kind of see a site plan.
Yeah.
Well, you can, you can hand sketch something, I'm not sure it's really gonna be feasible to get a fully engineered plan. I mean, is that what you're looking for?
I mean, I'm just speaking for myself, but I think some of the members are looking for some sort of a plan, whether it's just an existing conditions plan, to see where this building sits in relation to the wall, the brook, the parking lot,
Okay.
et cetera.
We can definitely submit all those plans to
Yeah.
you, everything that we have to this point, because,
And that might be enough.
yeah, I
Might be
mean,
enough.
we have
If you went to the
site
planning
plans.
board, you had to have these plans.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right,
so we
so-
have the site plans, we have
Yeah.
all those plans
Yeah.
that we will submit through
Right.
David to the commission.
Yeah,
So
Exactly.
at least going forward, when we all speak, you all are
Yeah,
aware
and it
of
might be
where
a mo-
anything is situated.
It might be a moot point. We might look at it and say, okay, this is no big
Right.
deal.
Yeah.
We might have other concerns
Right.
until we see a
Well,
plan.
hopefully you won't, but,
Hopefully we won't.
because there's been enough concerns inside the building.
So, Human, this is good. It was good coming in, I think, today, have a discussion, and kind of get some of the questions out in advance,
Sure.
ahead of time, give a little bit of feedback, and then, yeah, look forward to seeing you on the 14th then.
Great, and we'll proceed with handing over whatever plans.
Yeah, get it
that we
all into
have,
David, yeah.
David, and hopefully, it will not be a big problem to get this approved by the commission. To
Exactly.
get the work done.
Exactly. The more comprehensive you can get information, get
Yes.
into David, the quicker I think it'll be us to be able to.
So before I leave, I have one more piece that, another reason that we're doing this is to also structurally, because this building, this part of it is suspended,
Yeah,
is also to structurally secure that.
that's important.
Yeah,
Sure.
so,
Yeah.
there won't be any further issues after the building is done. We had to do it
Exactly.
now, so.
See, you
get it
see, a
done.
lot of it's being supported on an I-beam that goes
Yeah,
Yeah.
on top of these pylons you're seeing.
Exactly. I think it'll be a much safer situation.
That looks like Gibbs Construction all day long.
No, I don't do that.
well, thank
Way
you,
overbuilt.
thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks,
and
thanks.
Thank
Human.
you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Have a
Thank
good
you
night.
for patiently waiting.
Thank you.
Overbuilt.
Overbuilt.
I don't know when something like this ever would have been allowed.
That's, yeah, we don't want to go
A
there.
picture's
Don't
worth
wanna
1,000 words, that's all I can say.
We don't wanna go there.
What would Bobby Greenwood say about that?
Whoa, whoa.
All right. It was good honestly, it was good having a discussion, and it was good, so it's what we, communication here.
I think there's an opportunity to make some improvements here.
Absolutely. All right, Warren Poll update.
I believe the kiosk was delivered today
Nice.
to DPW. The proposal for removing some trees on the property was signed and submitted back to the contractor Arbor East. I've asked him to let me know when the date is scheduled to remove the trees. Once the trees are removed, then the erosion control can be installed, and hopefully the work on the parking area started.
Great,
So I think slowly but surely, we're making progress.
good, excellent, good. All right. And then we have some minutes from Vivian for April 19th, which are in front of all of us here. We need to take a moment, we can take a quick look. I'm glad to see this time that Mr. McLaughlin's name is fully spelled out there, Vivian. Last time it was abbreviated.
Was it,
At least my copy was.
was it Dave MC?
Yeah.
Was
yeah,
it really?
It was like Dave MC, yeah.
MCL.
MCL, it was MCL.
Good for you, Viv.
And he says so much, I would have missed one. It was bound to happen
I
at some point
know.
in time.
On page 6, just a question, is that Meadowbrook electric distribution line, is that correct? I don't even remember if that was,
Yes.
it is correct, Meadowbrook? Okay. All right, anybody have a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mark. John on second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? None unanimous? All right, so that was our last item on the agenda. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Chris, motion to adjourn,
Second.
seconded by Bill. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. The meeting's over. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see everybody next meeting.